Welcome to our friends from Unity in Metairie. We're so happy to have you here and have fellowship together again. And also, Unity of Metairie's minister, spiritual leader, Reverend Jack Fowler, is going to give us our truth lesson today. Jack is no stranger to us if this is the first time you've been here. Unity of Metairie's been here and shared with us on several wonderful occasions lately. So, Jack, we welcome you here.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. How are you doing? It's a beautiful day. It's Mother's Day, right? I have cats. Does that count? I think so, yes. It's good. It's good to see some folks from our spiritual community out in Metairie, Unity of Metairie. If you're ever out visiting and vacationing in Metairie, come and see us on Veterans Boulevard. No, it's awesome for us to come together as one body and trade ideas and resources and share each other's speaking abilities. And we need to have you come out and speak sometime with us. Unity of Metairie has been out there about 45 years. And we've tried over the years to do some things together, and I think the time has finally come for us to come together as one spiritual family here in New Orleans, where unity is very needed these days. We all need a spiritual family, I think, more than ever, right? I know that my spiritual tools and what I've learned through studying and all I had to do to become a minister has been the cornerstone of how I've stayed at peace during this time in our world. And the way I've stayed at peace is to relying on my inner wisdom and not really paying much attention to what's going on out there, becoming aware of it, but remembering that within us there is life that is powerful than anything in this world. It's more powerful than COVID, illness, even what we call death. Who you really are is held in the hands of grace within the mind of God in a state of perfection. And I just think that's awesome. And that's what's really helped me to get through this time that we call the pandemic. How many people have been forced to make changes? A little bit? About everybody, huh? So we've had to kind of reinvent our world, right? And do things a little bit differently. And I don't think that's necessarily bad. You know, we're having to be creative and we're having to use our wisdom that's within us to not just go along, just continue just going on what we always have done before. And I know many people have changed careers. They've moved. Two of my great friends were ministers of Unity at Gulf Shores, Alabama. Yeah, there was actually a Unity in Gulf Shores of Alabama. It was a small group, but they had a blast. They usually met in a bar on the beach, so you can imagine the fun they had. And they were planning to move to Europe when they retired in about 10 years or so. And they both got COVID, nearly died, and they said, this is the time, is now. And before I knew it, they had moved off, and they're living in, where are they living at? It's in Europe somewhere. Not Portugal, thank you. It just slipped my mind there. So they got up and moved to Portugal. And so we've all made changes like that because the time is now. The time is now to step out and do what you were called here to do. There's no waiting for it. So I recall a very beautiful story of my mom. Since we're talking about moms today, she made her transition about 8 years ago. And if you've heard me speak before, you know that my parents were both Pentecostal ministers. Full recovery is expected. No, we do honor all paths, and I know that that's a perfect path, and it was perfect for me as well. And my mom was one of the first women ever ordained in the Pentecostal movement in 1943. So she was a trailblazer, and she was a character. And when I started at Unity of Metairie 10 years ago, she wanted to come over from Mobile so bad to see the ministry and to see what I was doing there. And she made a trip over for Mother's Day. We got her a hotel so she could sleep with ease. The only thing is she had to bring her little poodle, Nestle. She had this little champagne poodle that she was just attached to. So she brought Nestle, and then she said, can I bring Nestle to church? And I said, well, just hold her and make sure she behaves. And we had a big crowd that day. Well, Nestle was sitting in my mom's lap, and they were on the very front row. And Nestle got very excited about the songs because we started out with a really upbeat song, and she was just like, wow. She kind of started whining and barking, and all of a sudden she sprang loose from my mom's lap, and she began to run in circles around the sanctuary. So for the first 2 opening songs, we were doing a poodle chase. It was pretty crazy. Of course, we finally caught her, and she was banned to be with the children after that in the children's room. She was no longer able to stay out there with us. And I'll never forget that day, just speaking and realizing how far my mom had come, even in her own belief. She had evolved. And here I am talking about one life, one God, loving all religions, and I'm like, seeing if she's going to make a face or something, And she's come so far. As a matter of fact, she had talked about meditating in the last years of her life. So we all can change, and our beliefs do evolve and change over time. And I'll never forget that day. It was so powerful and wonderful, and she loved it. And the big smile on her face made it all worthwhile. And we knew there would be a lot of people out at restaurants, and so we set up an instant restaurant in the sanctuary while everyone was greeting out in the welcome area. We set up for her a complete restaurant with honey baked ham and all the fixings. And she said, "Where are we going to lunch?" And we were like, "Right here." And it was just a wonderful day. So, I'm sure many of you have wonderful thoughts of your mother today. Many of us, if we had a rough childhood, it's a challenging thing today. Not all of us had great relationships with our moms, right? Our parents can be our greatest teachers in some respect because we only have one set of parents. We can't do much with them except learn to love them and accept them. Now, we also have our chosen families, which is wonderful, but our parents and our siblings, they are part of us, and they will be with us throughout our life. And so it took me a while to realize that not everyone had a great family bringing up. I always did, and assumed everyone did, how naive I was. And so today, however you're feeling about that, however you're feeling about your biological mother, just know within your heart, just feel the warmth and love, and know that every parent did the best that they could do with the information they had in that moment, the best that they could do. And so did their parents do the best that they could do. And so if there's any forgiveness needed, we of course extend that. And you can extend forgiveness even if your mom has already made her transition. And also today we honor those mothers that are mothering figures in our lives, even if they're not biological. I know I had a couple of those in my life, and maybe you did too. So we honor those mothers today. Many children are adopted. Sometimes someone comes into our life that is just nurturing and mothering to us, and they're not our biological mother. So we honor those mothers today as well. I have a sister that is 20 years older than me. And God is calling. God is calling. I have a sister that is 20 years older than me, and my mom, the first event she took me to, I was born in October, and I was a tiny little baby. In December, my sister graduated from college. So the first event I went to as a tiny baby was going to my sister's college graduation. Very unique family dynamic. And so I'd also like to honor my sister Betty today. She may be watching, and honor her. She was 20 years older than me and didn't have children, so guess what that means? 2 mamas, 2 incomes. 2 ways to get things. And I took advantage of that. Do you know that this year is the 108th anniversary of Mother's Day? 108 years old. It was started by a woman named Anna Jarvis in 1908 and became an official holiday in 1914. Long time ago. The clearest modern form of Mother's Day in the early Christian festival was known as Mothering Sunday. Did you know this? It wasn't really for the mothers, our biological mothers or our mothering figures. It's when we went to our home church or our hometown, and it was Mothering Day, where we went and visited the place where we grew up. It was originally seen as a time when the faithful would return to their mother church, the church they went to growing up, for a special service they would have. And of course, here in America, we love to buy and sell things, so eventually we turned it into a Hallmark holiday so that we could sell some things. And I'd also like to mention to all of us that heart of a mother, which I'll be speaking about today, is found in all of us. I believe in the invisible and the one God, the one presence, the one life, there is a balance within all of us. No matter what our biological sex is that we are, there is the masculine and the feminine. And all of us have a nurturing side. I mean, all of us do. I joked about my cats earlier, but when I'm with them, I really feel, a responsibility to take care of them, to nurture them, to pet them, to not get too upset when one of them wakes me up at 3 a.m, like today, decided he wanted a treat, and when I didn't get up, he started kicking things off the dresser. But I had to learn to nurture and love them. I was responsible for them. Now, of course, a cat is not anything like having a child. I know that's a far stretch, but to me, that's the closest I'll probably ever come. So within us, even the men that are here in the room today, you all have a nurturing side. You all have a side that is caring and loving, and we can all choose to use that in the world. Now, I tell you, the world needs that right now. The world needs our mothering side, all of us, that needs some nurturing, it needs some care. And so I love the scripture. It's Isaiah 66, 12 and 13. It says, "For this is what the Lord says, I will extend peace to her like a river, and the wealth of nations like a flooding stream. You will nurse and be carried on her arm and dandled on her knees. As a mother comforts her child, so will I comfort you." And so we know this precious spirit that is within us also brings us comfort. And do you know that we're never alone? It took me a while to really recognize this. I live alone. I spend a lot of time alone. Sometimes, when you're like that, you feel lonely. Anybody else here live totally alone? A few? So you know what I mean. There's some benefits to it. And like with everything, there's some fallbacks to it as well. And one of them is that sometimes I get lonely and I just think, I wish there was somebody here I could go run and see a movie with or whatever. And I've realized over the years that I'm never really alone. When we take our thoughts and our mind away from the world and all the things that are happening, everything that's outside us, and we look within, we realize that there is a comforting spirit within us that we can rely on. And that's what I do when it gets rough. And I feel like whatever needs to be done is just not possible to be done, or I feel just exhausted or whatever with the world, I just sit down and go within and just listen and realize that there is presence with me. There's a presence within me, this presence that is God, that is love, whatever you want to call it. Spirit, universe, we have so many names for it. Uncle Charlie, whatever you want to call it, it's all the same. Now, the instinct to mother is divine. It comes from the divine presence within us, that instinct that's within all of us. And I want to take just a moment, although shortly Mary Beth is going to do a beautiful meditation, I wanted us just to take a moment and just become still and begin to consciously breathe. Just feel yourself relax in the chair. Give yourself permission to completely relax. Begin to breathe deeply, watching your breath as you breathe in and exhale. Feel yourself becoming still and quiet. And as you do, begin to listen for that still, small voice. This is the mothering of the divine. This is the comforting of the divine. Here within, we find that peace that passes understanding. Even when things aren't going exactly like we think they should, there's a peace within us that is bigger and more powerful than any situation in this world. So we take just a moment, let your shoulders gently drop, allow your body to become still and empty. And realize that within you there is a mothering instinct, the divine presence, that is always there, waiting, still, And it's up to us to turn our attention and thoughts away from the temporary world, turning inward and finding this mothering, loving, nurturing presence that always has our back, that loves us unconditionally, is guiding us, knowing that everything is working out exactly as it should, even when it doesn't look that way. So we stay rooted in this stillness and silence as we continue being grateful for this gathering, knowing that we are here for a divine and holy purpose. Once again, breathing in, we say, thank you, God. And so it is. It always seems that Mother's Day seems to be beautiful all the time. I don't remember Mother's Day that wasn't sunny. And of course for us here in New Orleans, and hot. I went to Jazz Fest yesterday. I haven't been in a really long time. Man, was it hot. And you know, there's no place to escape to out there. There's no covering, so you're like a piece of bacon on a big hot skillet out there, and enjoyed some music and just took in the beauty of New Orleans and this beautiful weather. But it was hot, and you know, we get hot here, you know. I want to talk about a couple of mothers as I begin to close. I'm going to share a song with you after this, talking about the hands of grace that a mother has that holds us in love unconditionally and is always there with us. But a couple of mothers that I wanted to speak of who made such an impact in the world. First of all, my mom. She paved a way for ministers coming after her in the Pentecostal movement because women were not allowed to be ministers. You could be a Sunday school teacher, you could take the offering, but you couldn't be a minister. You know, and I have my own thoughts about that, but I'll keep them to myself, whatever your ideas are about that. But she blazed a way for women after her to become ministers in the Pentecostal movement, and now there's many of them. And many of them are well known. You know, you see them on television. And my mom was very sneaky because she met my father in ministerial school, and she said, I'll never forget, he was across the cafeteria eating a bag of boiled peanuts, and my heart went aflutter. And she was there to become a teacher at a ministerial school, but she had this plan that she listened to the wisdom within her. On Wednesday nights, they allowed anyone to speak that wanted to. It was an open mic night. You could do whatever you wanted, practice being a minister, practice speaking, tell jokes, whatever. And so she used that Wednesday night as a platform for people to begin to hear her message. And she would speak, and her crowds got bigger and bigger and bigger, till finally she packed the place out. She was the only one that anyone came for to listen to speak her beautiful words of wisdom. And after that and her years in school, they could not deny her ordination. And so my parents were partners in life and partners in ministry for 65 years. As a matter of fact, my father passed one day after their 65th anniversary. So to me, that's a beautiful love story. And I honor my mom today in the path that she blazed and the immaculate life that she lived. Not that it was perfect, but she always tried her best to love. Everything that my parents said on the platform, they lived in our home. And it was a beautiful way to grow up. So I honor my mom today, and I know we'll get to hang out at another time in another place. I'd like to honor Myrtle Fillmore. For anyone that's been in Unity a while, you know that Myrtle and Charles Fillmore were the founders of Unity. And man, was Myrtle a firebrand. First of all, she married Charles, who was almost 20 years younger than her. It's very scandalous. She said, I'll never cook. So when they built their beautiful home that's still there at Unity Village, our home office, she refused to have a kitchen built in it. I mean, that takes some guts to do that, right? It's like, I ain't going to cook. She said, my mama will cook. And they set her mom up in a little house down the way, and her mom would cook and haul the food up to their house and eat. She said, I ain't going to cook. And back then, we had a distorted view of women's roles in the world, as I said earlier. So for her to say, I refuse the kitchen, it was a big thing to do. And Myrtle, just like all of us, was on a spiritual journey. However, at some point, she began to show the presence of God so powerfully into the world, and she recognized her divinity so powerfully into the world, just as we all have the ability to do. Her light shone so bright that people were attracted to her. And said she didn't have to go out and pass out flyers and say, hey, we're starting a thing called Unity. That was never her intention. Her intention was to live her divinity powerfully in the world, and people became attracted to her. People would bring children to her doorstep and say, help me heal my child, because she herself healed of tuberculosis and many other diseases that she had, as did Charles, her husband. And so I honor Myrtle today. I can't imagine being her biological child. I mean, I can't imagine growing up with a woman like that who was so sure of herself. She lived to be in her 90s, and when she passed, she told everyone, Spirit says I'm getting ready to leave. And they were like, what you going to do, go to lunch? She said, no, I'm leaving here. There's more I can do on the other side. And she was completely healthy, walking up 10 flights of stairs every day at the tower at Unity Village. And she went and laid down and went into a meditation and just didn't come back. Isn't that the way to go? She was so connected to her divine source that she wasn't even afraid. So we honor her today for being our mother. We would not be sitting in these chairs today if it wasn't for this woman. So we can all consider her our mother. Some of you may be familiar with Emma Curtis Hopkins, who is a great teacher in the New Thought movement and in Unity. She was considered the teacher of teachers because a number of her students went on to become powerful, prominent leaders in all of the New Thought movement. And there's also Harriet Emily Cady. In 1981, Fillmore's Unity magazine was first published, and Emily published Lessons in Truth in the new magazine. Now, if you've been around Unity for a while, you know that 100 years later, Lessons in Truth is still used today as a powerful teaching device for all of us. So we honor these beautiful women and the mothers that they were and continue to be for all of us. And also, I'd like to honor someone who is dear to all of us, to many of us. That's Harriet Stafford. What a wonderful mother. And she was a mothering presence in this church. And as you know, she unexpectedly made her transition quite a few months ago, and we had a beautiful service for her here. But I always considered Harriet a mothering figure. And I didn't even think about it at the time, but now I look back and go, she was so mothering to me. And we honor her today and all of the work that she did in this church for so many years. When I first moved back to New Orleans to come to Unity of Metairie, I didn't really know a lot of people. Some of my friends here from the 90s when I lived here had scattered about. And there was a meditation here on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Don't come at 11 p.m. Nobody be here. 11 a.m. And it still goes on to this day, correct? 11 for an hour. If you need a little faith lift in the middle of the week, come here Wednesday mornings at 11 a.m. And for many years, Harriet did that meditation. And I saw that in the little guide I had. So I came here kind of feeling alone and having a little pity party, Oh my God, God has sent me here. I don't know anybody. What am I doing? Kind of moment. And I sat here on the second row, and Harriet led that meditation. And 10 minutes in, I was like, wow, thank you, God. I feel so okay now. I feel at peace just hearing her voice and hearing what she had to say. It was so beautiful. And we became friends that day. And now that I look back, I see that she was a mothering figure. And that day, she was nurturing me without even knowing it. So we honor her as well today. And I'm going to close by sharing a song with you. I actually wrote this song for my dogs. Not saying that mothers are dogs. I'm not saying that at all. But when I was working on my first CD of affirmative New Thought music, I was out walking my Labrador Retrievers one morning, and I had 3 of the big ones, the black and the chocolate and the yellow. And they were pulling me really hard. I was in Nashville. I was on one of those leashes, that extends out, so it looks like you're skiing, like this, And my yellow lab that I was very close to, Bosco, turned around and looked at me, and all I can say is that something came over me, and I said, this dog gets it. He knows that he's held by grace no matter what, no matter how much he feels like he messes up, no matter if he bites his sister or chews her toy, that he's still loved. And the idea came to me that we are all held in the hands of grace, no matter what. No matter what our life experience, no matter what condition of our body. And we're held in the hands of grace because this experience is temporary. We have to remember that. This is temporary. Who you really are is held in a state of perfection in the mind of God. And that's what grace really is. At least I think that's what it is. We cannot miss the mark. We cannot mess up. We are walking each other home. Walking each other home as we are held in the hands of grace.